It was a hot afternoon in Ulawale village, the kind of day when the sun cast long shadows on mud houses and children's laughter filled the air. Amara, a spirited 14-year-old with bright eyes full of hope, sat under the mango tree with her mother, Aduni. They were discussing her future, a future promised by Aunt Veronica, the wealthiest member of their family, who lived in the heart of Lagos. Aunt Veronica's letter had arrived a week earlier, painted with words of opportunity. "Send Amara to me, and I will give her the education and life you could only dream of," it read. Aduni, worn out by years of struggle as a widow, saw this as the chance to change her daughter's destiny. The village elders approved, and the decision was made. Amara, too innocent to foresee the challenges ahead, was excited to leave her dusty village for the glimmering lights of Lagos. As the village gathered to bid her farewell, Aduni held her daughter tightly. "Remember who you are, my child," she whispered, her voice shaky. "And don't forget where you come from." With those words echoing in her heart, Amara boarded the rickety bus that would take her to Lagos, unaware that her journey would lead to a life far different from the one she imagined. The bus ride to Lagos was long and bumpy, filled with the chatter of traders and the cries of restless children. As they neared the city, the landscape transformed. The vast greenery of the countryside gave way to endless concrete, shiny billboards, and a cacophony of car horns. Amara's heart raced as she caught her first glimpse of Lagos. When the bus finally stopped, Aunt Veronica's driver was waiting. The sleek black car that picked her up was unlike anything Amara had ever seen. The drive to Aunt Veronica's mansion left her in awe. The house was colossal, with high gates adorned in gold, surrounded by a manicured garden that seemed to stretch forever. Aunt Veronica greeted her with a warm smile, her jewellery sparkling under the grand chandelier. "Welcome, my dear," she said, embracing Amara. For a brief moment, Amara felt at ease, convinced she had stepped into a fairy tale. But as the evening wore on, the warmth faded. Veronica's eyes grew colder and her tone sharper. Amara was shown to a small room at the back of the mansion, a stark contrast to the opulent guest rooms. "This will be your space," Aunt Veronica said curtly before leaving her alone. As Amara lay on the hard mattress that night, she couldn't shake the feeling that the golden gates were more of a trap than an entrance to paradise. The following morning, Amara awoke to the sound of sharp knocks on her door. It was Aunt Veronica's housekeeper, Mama Titi, a stout woman with stern eyes and a quick tongue. "Get up, girl, your work starts now," she barked. Amara, still groggy, quickly got dressed and followed Mama Titi to the kitchen. The day's tasks were overwhelming. From scrubbing floors to polishing furniture, Amara's hands ached as she worked tirelessly. There was no mention of school, no time for rest. Aunt Veronica's children, Uche and Ada, barely acknowledged her, treating her like a shadow that existed only to serve them. By evening, Amara's hopes of a bright future had dimmed. She sat alone in her tiny room, her stomach grumbling from the meagre plate of leftovers she had been given. Tears streamed down her face as she clutched the small photograph of her mother she had brought with her. The mansion's grandeur now felt suffocating, its golden gates a cruel irony. Days turned into weeks, and Amara became familiar with the routine. Aunt Veronica was demanding, expecting the house to run flawlessly. Every mistake Amara made, no matter how small, was met with harsh words and punishment. "You're lucky to even be here," Aunt Veronica would often say, reminding her of the privilege she had been given. Amara worked tirelessly, waking before dawn to prepare breakfast and staying up late to clean up after the family. She rarely had time to herself, and when she did, it was spent nursing her blistered hands or crying silently into her pillow. The promises of education were now a distant dream. Aunt Veronica dismissed the topic whenever Amara brought it up. "You need to earn your place here first," she'd snap, her voice cold and dismissive. Amara's spirit, once bright and hopeful, began to fade. She realized she was nothing more than a servant in a home where she was supposed to be family. One afternoon, as Amara scrubbed the front steps, a neighbor named Auntie Funmi approached the gate. A warm, motherly woman, Auntie Funmi often visited to gossip with Aunt Veronica. This time her eyes caught Amara's weary face. "Who is this young girl?" Auntie Funmi asked, her tone curious. Aunt Veronica laughed dismissively. "She's my niece from the village. She's here to help out while we get her settled." But Auntie Funmi wasn't fooled. She noticed Amara's blistered hands and the way she avoided eye contact. She murmured, handing Amara a piece of candy before walking away. Amara clutched the candy tightly, feeling a glimmer of kindness in her otherwise harsh reality. That night, Amara dreamed of freedom. She imagined herself back in the village, running through the fields with her friends, her mother's laughter echoing in the distance. The dream gave her a small but much-needed dose of hope. As the days went by, Amara realized that every corner of the mansion had its secrets. The housekeeper, Mama Titi, was more than just a servant. She was Aunt Veronica's spy. Mama Titi watched Amara closely, reporting every misstep to Veronica, ensuring there was no room for mistakes. One day, Amara overheard a conversation between Veronica and a family friend. "I've taken her in as a favor to her mother," Veronica said, her tone dripping with self-righteousness. "But honestly, she's such a burden. These village girls are so slow." Amara's heart sank. She had thought her aunt cared for her, even if just a little. But now she realized that Veronica saw her as nothing more than free labor, a tool to show off her generosity to others. Determined not to let her aunt's words break her completely, Amara began to plot small ways to make her life more bearable. She held on to the hope that one day she would leave the golden gates behind forever. Late one night, as the mansion lay silent, Amara sat at the small wooden desk in her room with a piece of paper and a pencil she had found in the storeroom. Her heart ached for her mother, and she decided to write her a letter. "Dear Mama, life in Lagos is not as I imagined. Aunt Veronica is kind to everyone but me. I work from morning until night, and my hands are raw. I don't go to school like she promised. I miss you so much. Please come for me." Tears blurred the words as she wrote. She folded the letter carefully, intending to give it to Auntie Funmi to deliver, but fear gripped her. What if Aunt Veronica found out? The consequences could be unbearable. Amara hid the letter under her mattress, vowing to send it when the time was right. That night, she cried herself to sleep, clutching the photograph of her mother. One evening, while cleaning the storage room, Amara discovered an old book tucked away in a dusty corner. The book, titled A Woman's Strength, was filled with stories of women who overcame adversity. Intrigued, Amara began sneaking moments to read it, finding solace and courage in its pages. The book became her escape, her secret treasure in a world that felt so cruel. Whenever she felt overwhelmed, she would retreat to the storage room, where she could lose herself in the stories of resilience. One passage stood out to her. "No matter how high the walls, there is always a way out." The words resonated deeply, sparking a tiny flame of determination within her. Amara realized that she couldn't wait for someone to rescue her. She had to find her own way out of the Golden Gate. One afternoon, Aunt Veronica summoned Amara into the grand living room, her voice sharp. "You've been here for months, and yet I still find mistakes. Do you think this house runs itself?" she snapped. Amara apologized, her head bowed. But Veronica wasn't done. "If you can't even follow simple instructions, maybe I should send you back to the village. Would you like that?" The words stung, but Amara quickly realized they were a test. Her aunt didn't want her to leave. She needed her to keep the household running. "No, Auntie, I'm sorry. I'll do better," Amara replied, swallowing her pride. She knew she had to bide her time and play the role Veronica expected of her. Inside, however, she felt the seeds of rebellion growing. One day, while running errands in the market, Amara bumped into Auntie Funmi again. The older woman noticed the shadows under Amara's eyes and the way she nervously glanced around. "How are you, my dear?" Auntie Funmi asked gently. Amara hesitated, then whispered, "I'm fine." But her trembling hands told another story. Auntie Funmi leaned closer. "If you ever need help, you can come to me," she said, slipping a small note with her address into Amara's pocket. That small act of kindness gave Amara hope. For the first time, she felt like someone cared about her well-being. She clung to the note as if it were a lifeline, vowing to keep it safe until she could find the courage to use it. Amara spent the days that followed with Auntie Funmi's note hidden securely in her shoe. It was her only connection to a potential lifeline, but fear held her back from using it. What if Aunt Veronica found out? What if Auntie Funmi turned her away? The weight of these thoughts consumed her. Aunt Veronica's temper seemed to worsen, and even the children treated Amara with disdain. One evening, Uche spilled his drink on purpose and demanded Amara clean it up, while laughing mockingly. Amara clenched her fists, her pride wounded, but she complied. In the quiet moments of the night, she stared at the note, tracing the address written in neat handwriting. She whispered to herself, "One day, I'll find the strength to leave." Until then, she knew she had to endure. One afternoon, while Amara was scrubbing the living room floor, Mama Titi entered, holding a bundle of dirty laundry. "Why are you always sneaking around like a thief?" Mama Titi snapped, her eyes narrowing. Amara looked up, confused. "I wasn't sneaking, Ma," she replied softly. Mama Titi leaned closer, her voice low but threatening. "I know you're up to something. Don't think I don't see the way you stare at that gate." Amara froze, realizing that Mama Titi had been watching her closely. The housekeeper had always been harsh, but this time her tone carried a dangerous edge. Amara said nothing, pretending to focus on her work. Later that evening, Mama Titi rummaged through Amara's room under the guise of cleaning. Though she didn't find Auntie Funmi's note, her suspicion deepened. Amara could feel the walls closing in around her. One evening, Aunt Veronica announced that she and her children would be attending a party and wouldn't return until late. Amara saw this as her chance to visit Auntie Funmi. Heart pounding, she waited until the house was quiet. Slipping out of the back door, she ran through the dark streets of Lagos, clutching the note in her hand. The city was alive with noise and chaos, but Amara's focus remained on the address. When she finally reached the house, she hesitated before knocking. What if Auntie Funmi wasn't home? What if she refused to help? But before she could turn away, the door opened. Auntie Funmi stood there, surprised but concerned. "Amara, what are you doing here?" she asked. Amara's tears spilled over as she told her story. Auntie Funmi listened intently, her expression softening. "You're safe here," she said, pulling Amara into a hug. The next morning, Auntie Funmi offered Amara breakfast and listened as she recounted months of suffering. "You can't go back there," Auntie Funmi said firmly. Amara nodded but felt torn. She couldn't bear the thought of leaving without telling her mother. Auntie Funmi handed her a phone. "Call her," she said. Amara dialed her mother's number with trembling hands. When Aduni answered, Amara broke down, explaining everything. Her mother was horrified. "I'll find a way to bring you back home," she promised. Auntie Funmi and Aduni began making plans for Amara's escape, ensuring that Aunt Veronica wouldn't suspect a thing. For the first time in months, Amara felt hope blooming in her heart. Returning to Aunt Veronica's house felt like stepping into a lion's den. Amara's heart pounded as she walked through the gates, rehearsing the words Auntie Funmi had taught her: stay calm, act normal, and don't raise suspicion. Aunt Veronica was in the living room, her sharp gaze fixed on Amara. "What took you so long at the market today?" she snapped. Amara stammered a reply about long lines and heavy traffic, avoiding her aunt's piercing eyes. Mama Titi hovered nearby, her eyes narrowing. Amara could sense her suspicion growing, but she kept her composure. Later that night, as she prepared for bed, Mama Titi barged into her room, searching for any sign of wrongdoing. Amara clenched her fists, praying the note from Auntie Funmi remained hidden in her shoe. The pressure was mounting, but Amara reminded herself of the plan. "Soon," she told herself, "soon I'll be free." The next day, Aunt Veronica called Amara into the kitchen. "Your behavior has been strange lately," she said, her tone icy. "If you're hiding something, I will find out." Amara's heart raced, but she kept her expression neutral. "I'm not hiding anything, Auntie," she replied softly. Her calm demeanor seemed to placate Aunt Veronica, but Mama Titi wasn't convinced. She cornered Amara in the hallway later, her voice a harsh whisper. "Do you think I don't know what you're planning? If you try to leave, I'll make sure you regret it." Amara felt a chill run down her spine, but she refused to let fear consume her. She clung to the promise she had made to herself, to escape no matter what it took. Auntie Funmi's support became a lifeline for Amara. They communicated secretly, with Auntie Funmi slipping small notes into Amara's shopping bag whenever she visited the market. One note read, "Be ready by Saturday evening. I'll be waiting near the corner shop." Amara's heart soared, but the fear of being caught loomed large. On Friday night, Amara gathered her few belongings, hiding them in a small bag she could easily carry. She whispered a silent prayer, asking for strength and protection. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. "You are stronger than you think, my child." Saturday arrived, and the hours crawled by. Amara completed her chores with meticulous care, ensuring nothing would arouse suspicion. As evening fell, she slipped out of the house under the guise of running an errand. Her heart pounded as she made her way to the corner shop, where Auntie Funmi was waiting in her car. The moment she saw Auntie Funmi's warm smile, Amara felt a surge of relief. "Get in," Auntie Funmi urged, opening the car door. Amara climbed in, clutching her bag tightly. As the car pulled away, she glanced back at the mansion, its golden gates now a symbol of her suffering. She whispered, "I'll never come back here." At Auntie Funmi's house, Amara felt a weight lift off her shoulders. For the first time in months, she slept without fear, waking to the smell of freshly cooked food and the sound of Auntie Funmi's kind voice. Over breakfast, Auntie Funmi laid out a plan. "Your mother is working on getting you back to the village. Until then, you'll stay here, safe and free." Amara's gratitude was overwhelming. She helped Auntie Funmi around the house, eager to show her appreciation. The scars of her time with Aunt Veronica were still fresh, but in Auntie Funmi's home, she began to heal. Although Amara felt safe at Auntie Funmi's house, the trauma of her time with Aunt Veronica lingered. Every loud voice or sudden movement made her flinch, and she often woke up from nightmares of being sent back. Auntie Funmi noticed Amara's struggles and took it upon herself to help her heal. She encouraged Amara to talk about her experiences, assuring her that she was no longer alone. "Your voice matters, Amara. Speaking out is the first step toward reclaiming your life," she said. Slowly, Amara began to open up. With each story she shared, she felt a weight lifting off her chest. Auntie Funmi's unwavering support became her anchor, and for the first time, Amara believed she could move forward. Meanwhile, Aunt Veronica was livid when she realized Amara had disappeared. She questioned Mama Titi and the children, demanding to know if anyone had seen Amara leave. "She must have run off," Mama Titi exclaimed, feigning innocence. But Aunt Veronica wasn't convinced. She ordered the driver to search the streets and contacted neighbors, hoping someone had seen Amara. The thought of losing her unpaid housemaid enraged Aunt Veronica. She muttered bitterly, "Ungrateful girl, after everything I've done for her." Her pride was wounded, and she vowed to find Amara, not out of concern, but to reassert her control. Amara's mother, Aduni, received the news of her daughter's escape with a mix of relief and determination. She immediately contacted Auntie Funmi, thanking her for her kindness and promising to arrange for Amara's return to the village. Auntie Funmi assured Aduni that Amara was safe. "She's a strong girl," she said, "but she'll need time to heal. You should be proud of her." Aduni wept tears of gratitude, vowing to protect her daughter at all costs. She began saving every penny she could to ensure Amara would have a fresh start when she returned home. At Auntie Funmi's house, Amara was given the opportunity to attend evening literacy classes at a local community centre. It was her first taste of education since leaving the village, and she embraced it with enthusiasm. She quickly became one of the most eager students, soaking up knowledge like a sponge. Learning to read and write gave her a sense of empowerment she had never felt before. One evening, after class, Amara wrote a letter to her mother, sharing her newfound skills. "Mama, I'm learning so much here. I promise to make you proud," she wrote, her heart swelling with hope. Unwilling to let Amara go without a fight, Aunt Veronica hired a private investigator to track her down. The investigator traced Amara's steps to Auntie Funmi's house, reporting back to Veronica with the address. Veronica stormed into Auntie Funmi's home one afternoon, demanding to see Amara. "You had no right to take her from me," she yelled, her face red with fury. But Auntie Funmi stood her ground. "You lost that right the moment you treated her like a servant instead of family," she retorted. Veronica threatened to involve the police, but Auntie Funmi remained calm. "Go ahead," she said. "Let them hear Amara's story. Let the world know what you've done." Faced with the threat of exposure, Veronica retreated, her reputation more important to her than regaining control over Amara. After weeks of planning, Adunni finally arrived in Lagos to reunite with her daughter. The moment Amara saw her mother, she ran into her arms, sobbing uncontrollably. "My child," Adunni whispered, holding Amara tightly. "I'm so sorry for sending you away. I thought I was giving you a better life." Amara shook her head. "It wasn't your fault, Mama. I'm just happy to be with you again." Their reunion was a turning point for Amara, who realized that no matter how far she had been taken, her mother's love had never wavered. Amara's homecoming was met with warmth and celebration. The villagers welcomed her and her mother with open arms, eager to see the young girl who had been forced to leave. Adunni, with the help of the community, began a small business selling local crafts and produce. Amara helped wherever she could, using her skills to assist with bookkeeping and handling customers. Her quiet determination quickly earned her respect among the villagers. As time passed, Amara's confidence grew. She began to share her story with others, helping young girls who had faced similar struggles. Her courage became a source of inspiration, and she found a new purpose in empowering those around her. Months later, Auntie Funmi arrived in the village for a surprise visit. Amara rushed to greet her, grateful for the continued support. Auntie Funmi smiled warmly. "I've been following your progress, Amara. You've done so well." The two women sat together in the shade of a large tree, sipping freshly brewed tea. Auntie Funmi shared news of their family in Lagos and reassured Amara that Aunt Veronica had faced consequences for her actions. But it wasn't the news about Veronica that mattered to Amara. It was the deep sense of peace that had settled in her heart since leaving the city. As Amara grew older, she began to mentor younger girls in the village, teaching them not just practical skills, but also the value of standing up for themselves. She became known as a fierce protector, someone who fought for justice and never backed down. Auntie Funmi continued to support Amara, even helping her establish a small business in the village that focused on sewing and crafts. With Auntie Funmi's financial help and guidance, Amara was able to provide work to other girls in the village, offering them a chance at independence. In turn, the village became a stronger community, united by the stories of struggle and triumph shared by those who had fought for a better life. Years passed, and Amara's life in the village became a testament to the strength of the human spirit. She had transformed from a scared, powerless girl into a confident woman who had rebuilt not just her life, but the lives of others. One evening, as she sat with her mother and Auntie Funmi, Amara reflected on the journey she had taken. "It hasn't been easy," she said, "but I wouldn't trade this life for anything." Auntie Funmi smiled at her. "You're the one who gave yourself a chance, Amara. You fought for your freedom, and now you're helping others do the same." Amara knew the journey wasn't over. There would always be challenges ahead, but she was ready. She had the strength of her mother, Auntie Funmi, and the entire village behind her. Together, they had built a future where young girls could dream of something better. A future where no one would ever again be sent away to suffer in silence. And with that, Amara's true story had only just begun. If you enjoyed this story and want more inspiring tales, subscribe and stay connected.